Hi friends. It's been a little while, I know. Well, you know, I guess we're all doing the best that we can. Um, don't know what to say. It's just been challenging. Uh, so I have a special link that I'm going to give you with this video, with this journal. It's now some of you are probably pretty disgusted with Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot, but you know, no matter what kind of an ass she makes of herself, her heart's in the right place, and she's doing her bit, and I think we can give her credit for that. I've been one of you who, especially in a fairly recent interview she did with Bob and Clifford, she was just outright rude. It was awful, you know, talking them down, shouting over them, kind of thing, and just disrespectful. However, don't let that stop you from watching this interview, please. This interview, she's not as bad as she was. Frankly, I'm surprised that Bob ever gave her another interview after that. I don't know that I would have. Although what he reveals in this over an hour-long interview is that in his near-death experience that he had within the last 12 months, he was told on the other side that he wasn't finished. And he was actually told, and you'll hear him say it, that one of the things he was supposed to do when he got back was to sit down with Carrie and give this interview. So, you know, it's kind of an orders from headquarters sort of a thing, and it's really worth listening to. It has some really upbeat news toward the end, a little more than halfway through. Bob tells us about a new off-world species or beings or whatever that are far advanced of all the current players that have been involved here. And these new guys have come on the scene. And from what he says, they are determined that humanity is going to make this upgrade. And that's just the way of it. And anything that gets seriously in the way of that will be dealt with. And you just get the sense that they are, you know, being far beyond the other players involved, including the good guys and the bad guys. They have the power to make things come out as they choose. Now let's all lighten up on this a good bit. You know, when things get too hot and heavy and you get frustrated and your solar plexus is all in a knot, back off and remember, it's a hologram. It's an experience, and this isn't really you here. You know, who and what we are is way too much to smash and cram into these little bodies. Okay, so I like to say you've got your left pinky toe of who and what you really are here in 3D. And the rest of you is beyond. We are not human beings. We work through and we use human bodies. We are not human beings. We are light beings. And it's a pretty good time to be waking up to that. I'm thinking, what with all this stuff getting ready to go down, being too tightly attached to life in 3D, or to believing that we know truth and we know what's right and that's all that's right, and those kind of things, they'll get in our way. You know, I think the best way to go into this is pretty well empty. We can know the best that we can know. We can reach for the highest understanding that we can come up with, and that's great, as long as we don't hold on to it too tightly. We have to be ready and willing to let that go when we find the next better thing that shows us an even higher way. And since we're on an ascending spiral, I believe that will continue to keep happening, I guess basically forever. So part of our problem, not that we have problems, but if we were to look at it that way, from that perspective, a big part of our problem is being too attached. Too attached to the body, and certainly to the mind, to things of 3D, attached to our ideas of how we think things are. Or a lot of us, I think, have been programmed and accepted the programming so that we're angry and we're depressed and we're upset and we're fearful. And not realizing who and what we are, because if we did, we couldn't accept that kind of programming. It would just fall right off. It wouldn't even penetrate. You're divine. And it's time you knew it. You know? It's not your outer persona. It's nothing 3D in you that's divine. That's a manifestation. That's a reflection of who and what you really are. So anyway, I think I've yapped long enough about that. Oh dear, something tells me I haven't. Okay. All right, I'm listening. Ken told me I had, Ken is my distance healer that I work with on a regular basis. Every 2 or 3 weeks we get together on the phone. He does a healing first, and then he calls me. And, you know, since the last time I spoke with him, I have a document called Ken, and I just write down every little thing that comes to me that I want to run by him. Anyway, he tells me that there came another one of those choice points that we cross in the life where I could have chosen to make my exit. Now, I didn't know about this one consciously. A couple of these, as they've come, I knew, and I made a conscious choice to stay and not go. And when you do that, what I've discovered so far is that after you make that choice, you've got holy hell to go through, because there are major adaptings and adjustments that have to be done in order, because you were in process of, you know, walking out, and so you have to turn around and come back and in most cases slough off who you were, because who you were is finished now. It reached a finishing point. And so it's kind of like, you know, in a small way, it's kind of like a new birth. And so what was old has to go. And that can be pretty grueling. And it has been. It surprised me. But it goes along with, I was asking him, why, oh, why have I been so weighted down and for so long with no let up? It hasn't been like this much before. And that was a part of his answer. I mean, aside from the crap we're all dealing with, everybody has got their own weights and burdens now. And I think what's driving them out and making them front and center is the rise in frequency that we're all going through. And the change, it's not just our DNA. I mean, human science right now is pretty darn primitive. I think we've all been in societies and advanced civilizations that were well beyond the understandings that were being offered here. And so I think we can rely on ourselves and our own inner tuition, our intuition, much more than we can rely on anything we're being told in the Matrix here. Boy, that movie is something else. It just becomes more and more real for me, the Matrix, how they use us for energy. I mean, it was a polite way to say it, to hold up a battery. That's kind of a washed up, cleaned up way of looking at it. It gets pretty gross. But, you know, we don't have to wage a war against anyone or anything. Remember, all we have to do is take care of ourselves and be in the now. And as we do that, what will happen is that we're naturally rising in frequency. And, you know, we reach a certain point, and my friends, we can't be touched, not by anything dark anyway. We just slip out of their hands. And we will likely at some point disappear out of their visual spectrum even. So, you know, the way out is in. Go within. Do all that work within. That's what's paying off. Besides which, once we clean up and heal all of our aggression and our anger and all of that, war will just disappear from the face of the planet. How I wish everybody understood that all there is on the outside, absolutely all that's there, is our insides being reflected back to us. And so if it's out there, that means it's in here. And so each and every one of us needs to go within and deal with it. And we can even take it a step farther. Now, I don't pronounce this properly, I don't think, but there's Ho'oponopono. And that is a way that you can truly claim the total oneness of all that lives, of all that is. And so to heal someone who's presenting with whatever kind of symptoms or problems or issues, you go within and you find that very thing inside yourself. And you cleanse it, you heal it, you forgive it, you love it. And the healing takes place in that supposedly other person. Maybe one of the last illusions to go will be the idea that there is such a thing as another person. That there are persons at all, because that enshrines the whole concept of separation, doesn't it? Are we separate? We only seem to be. We're not. There's a seeming, and we get into it and we love playing with it. And then, unfortunately, we can forget that it's only a seeming, and we can start believing in it. That's the big deal. That's our pot of gold, is our garden of belief. As we get in there and tend the crops and put in the beliefs that we choose and pull out the weeds, the beliefs that have been programmed into us, that's when we can really see change coming about. We've got to quit turning to other people, thinking that somebody else has some kind of an answer for you. We all have it. It's within. It's within, And when we get stubborn enough and focused enough and determined enough, we'll get there. There's a lot of surrendering that has to go down, that naturally goes down along the way. We're in process of adjusting our priorities, I hope, except for those who have gone through these levels of adjustment and they're simply ready. But you can't be running. There can't be any trying to run away from anything, because that doesn't work. Honest to goodness, that doesn't work. And I think there's enough of us out here with physical experience of that to know it's the truth. You can't run from anything. And fear doesn't work either. These kind of things, they have to be dealt with and dropped. But you have to deal with them by welcoming them into your space and just sitting with them. There's something to be gained there. There's a gift that these things bring, even though it's painful. Well, it is what it is, and let's just accept it for what it is and invite it to tea. Good idea to pretzel the mind with a lovely koan if you've got one standing around. My favorite one is always, these eyes through which I hope to see God are the eyes through which God sees me. And that makes me you and you me, now doesn't it? It's a way into our oneness, but that doesn't make sense to the mind. The mind isn't getting us there. That's the other thing, is people get attached and wedded to the mind. And so if their ideas get challenged, they get upset. Well, that's because they're identified with the mind. And they think they've been challenged. And they're not separate enough, not detached enough from their ideas to simply have a conversation about them. Boy, that's a real telling point now, isn't it? If you can't have a conversation about certain things, good idea to look at what's under there. And don't look at your brother for the core of it, the cause of it. Look inside. We always have to look inside. Whatever exists out there, even the powers that were, we have to look inside for that in us. There are a lot of people that get really upset, as a for instance, about the cruelty supposedly practiced during abductions, particularly by the Greys and so on. And I think we have to look at our own cruelty toward our livestock and towards the animals that are raised as part of the food chain. And we're not clean in this. You know, when we clean ourselves up, this stuff can't exist anymore. But if we're eating the flesh of these creatures, you know, right off the grocery shelves, we need to look at that. It's been cleaned up so nicely so that we don't see the ugliness that's behind the scenes. And we've been so desensitized that we can't feel it in the meat. If we had our full sensitivity, we could feel what they felt. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with raising livestock or even eating them, but they deserve a happy life. They deserve respect and consideration and to be treated humanely in every way. And once we're doing that, things will change. I'm just sharing this because we've got to get out of our comfort zone. And there's some really difficult things that we need to look at as we're waking up. It's a part of coming into truth. We have to be willing to greet truth and welcome it no matter how awful it seems, no matter how much it hurts. And it does. It really does. I mean, add on top of everything else the increased sensitivity that so many, if not all of us, are feeling. And it's pretty difficult. But that's just one side of the coin, as always. You know? Nothing is what we think it is. Nothing at all. So, bottom line, what can we do? What should we do? Well, first of all, get rid of the word should. Don't should on yourself. It's very rude. Just in case you hadn't heard. You know? Love. Greet everything, including yourself, with love. A love that's so pure, so unconditional that it's divine. And you'll feel spirit working through you, speaking through you, you know, feeling through you. We are that. We're source beings, straight from the heart of source or God or prime creator, whatever we call it. We are that. We just forgot. It's bizarre, I know. We were playing this game with 3D and somehow we slipped into it. We got caught up in it. I'm sure anyone who's played a video game or watched a movie knows what it is to get too identified with it. And, you know, even though it's a fantasy, you find yourself crying with it or getting excited with it and all that kind of thing. And it can be fun in the moment, but you can also see how we can get so caught up in it. For instance, there's a lot of people still watching soap operas. You know, they're so caught up in that whole thing that they just aren't comfortable unless they see the latest episodes of what's going on. They've identified with it as if it was real. And so the greater part of their being is shoved to the side while they play with a fantasy land. And that's okay. Don't condemn yourself for anything. You know, even if you're the greatest soap opera fiend there is, that's okay. No big deal. There's no judgment here. None whatsoever. You don't have to fear anything. You're immortal, you're eternal, you're divine, and there's just no judgment anywhere. All there is love. We just have to wake up to that. Somehow, it's bizarre, but somehow we forgot. So, I'll leave you with a Bob Dean, Clifford Stone video, and I hope everyone watches it. It's well worth watching, and if you're so identified with things that you find yourself getting upset with Carrie's interruptions and so on, back off. You know, Bob and Cliff are big boys, and they can handle her, and they do. And let's remember to love Carrie too. She's just trying her best. She's really walking her talk. And so we won't get along with everybody who's doing that. Their walk will be different than ours, and that's okay too. We can still love them with a love that's unconditional. Check it out. Good day.